Hello, hello. Well, back for more. Today is the 15th of August, and we are continuing with the scene of Miguel that we have been working on all week. And so this is where we are right now. The scene's on 2, so it's going at warp speed there. So we're just going to keep adding drawings to this to smooth out the action. I think probably might be a good thing here to expose each drawing on force. So that's what I'm going to do here, which will might give it a little more less frantic move, which will also have an effect on how we perceive it as we're working on it. Be aware as an animator, one of the things that the reasoning for how you work, your perception of your scene as you're working on it, flipping it, looking at it, is to sort of get yourself to a place where the timing and the feel of what you're trying to accomplish comes through somewhat in the way it's being presented to you in real time. When I was an animator, at Disney, learning the craft, and had learned it, started working at Bakshi Studios first, and then after that, working for Disney, where I got my basic training. I'd say Bakshi Studios gave me my first opportunity to do animation at all. That was the very first company that I worked for, and I want to thank Ralph Bakshi if he happens to see this. Thank you, Ralph, for the opportunity to start. I wouldn't have been able to do what I'm doing today had it not been for your kindness to give me my first job in the animation. And I was around a lot of very talented people, Dale Bear, Irv Spence, um, Art Vitello, um, Hank Tucker, Steve Gordon, Crystal Russell. There were some extraordinarily talented people. John Sperry, Johnny Vita, just some really, really super talented people. And I wanted to take the moment to thank all of them. I don't want to leave anybody out. Uh, Tasia, I forget what Tasia's last name was. Um, Janet Cummings, um, Ed Wexler. There were so many. I don't, if I try to name everybody, I'm bound to forget somebody. Sean Joyce, who I think was like one of the first talents that I remember. I don't think he'd ever done animation before, actually. And Sean came in and he did this wonderful. I remember it was this lovely scene he did. I believe it was a wraith. It was not a wraith. It was one of the flying creatures that he animated, and it was just beautiful. And he just did it, And but I mean, it was a wonderful opportunity for me to learn animation from people. So I got a lot of really, really good training, and then I went on from there to work at Disney Studios on The Fox and the Hound, and that was my first opportunity to get real basic training as an animator. And oh my goodness, I mean the names I can't. I came into Disney. I was quite once again very blessed because um, one of the first people that I met was Don Duckwall. I remember thinking, this guy's name is actually Don Duckwall. Just for some reason, it seemed almost kind of humorous to me, but very nice man. And he really, I mean, once again, and what was cool was he gave me an opportunity to, I could have been an assistant animator. I could have started out as an assistant, um, but I told him, I said, no. I want to go through the training program. I said, whatever it is you guys do here, I said, I love what you do, and I wanna learn it, you know. And so they put me in the training program, and that was, of course, where I met Eric Larson, who, my goodness, was a powerhouse of a man, and all of the great folks that I worked with at Disney. My goodness, Glenn Keane, Randy Cartwright, Joe Ramp, Chuck Harvey, My goodness, I can't. Um, Mike Sedino. I mean, I didn't work say with every one of these people, but being around them. Andreas. I remember when Andreas came to the studio. My gracious, that guy he just fell out of heaven or something. With all this talent, just oh, so many. I almost hate naming people, because you're bound to miss somebody. I don't want anyone to feel. And I was, gosh, John Musker, Jerry Reese, John Lasseter. John Lasseter. I was fortunate enough to work under John Lasseter. John was Randy Cartwright's assistant, and me and Joe and Cicero were breakdown in betweeners who worked with him. So I got to work under Lasseter, who I could see back then. This guy, just brilliant story man. It was no surprise to me that after he left Disney, that he was going to do something. you know, how some people you just sort of know when you talk with them and look at what they've done, and you go like something special about this person. The place just was loaded up. Tim Burton was there, and Tim, I got to meet him. Um, oh man, and Bluth and his folks were there. So I was there at the time just before they left to go work to go develop their company, Bluth, Don Bluth, John Pomeroy, Gary Goldman. Oh gosh, I worked on some cleanup stuff for Linda Miller. I worked under Walt Stanchfield. I think they kind of I like I think they liked my cleanup. I ended up pretty much staying there. I didn't. They gave me shots at animation, but I really never progressed to an animator at Disney. I was basically a breakdown assistant, which was fine. You know, um, back then, you had to kind of you do tests, and and then they look at your work and maybe give you a shot. You animate it, and they wouldn't give you credit. Back then, you had to, if you weren't an animator, weren't labeled as an animator, you wouldn't automatically get, you had to be labeled as an animator. And even if you were labeled as an animator, you had to get 100 feet of your work into the picture before they give you screen credit. So I guess really in a sense, it seemed to me that what they were doing was giving us all an incentive to improve ourselves. It's like it's an honor to be given a screen credit. It's an honor to become an animator. Um, I assume that was what they were trying to do, and at least that's how I saw it. And we were all a bunch of kids. I was very typical, and they put up with my nonsense, no question. But I can honestly say it was a wonderful opportunity. Which I guess I took to very well. At least I'd like to think I did. It was fun. So I did, eventually before I left the studio, I did get to do animation here and there. I was fortunate enough to work on some pretty cool stuff. On Fox and the Hound, they gave me a couple of shots at animation, which I kind of, eh, I did my best, but not so great. Uh, Phil Niblink kind of, I think he came in. I remember I had a scene of Copper, and yeah, it was a scene of Copper, which I tried to animate, but I didn't. Yeah, he ended up animating, but I got to work on it. And I think there was but I got to work on a lot of stuff though. I mean, I got to do assists and in betweens and stuff on a lot of things in Fox and Hound, on the Hunter and on Copper when he was an adult, and I did a lot of cleanup and worked on just a lot of stuff in Fox and Hound, a lot of stuff. Um, it was wonderful stuff, So even though I didn't really get to be classified as an animator at Disney at all, I still looked at it as that was that was where I got the training. That was where I learned animation. I mean, I knew it, but that was where I really learned it. And once I said it, yes, just got to work with some amazing talents there. So I don't, I don't by any stretch uh, I value everything about working for Disney. Um, it was a great opportunity. Um, and I would tell anyone, I mean, 2D animation sadly is kind of gone with the way of the dodo, as it were, in these studios, and I hope that it comes back in a big way. Though the good thing is, a lot of these folks, myself included, are either retired and teaching or doing something, and we try to encourage the younger folks to do animation on their own. But the 2D method was really something special. I didn't really break out, I'd say, to be an animator. Well, I did and I didn't. I mean, I on on the Black Cauldron, I did some stuff, but once again, I was still really an assistant on that one. It really wasn't until I left Disney the first time. I went back to Disney several times later on, and I did more significant things when I came back there. But when I left, I went to work for Richard Williams, and that was another tremendous opportunity where I did finally get to animate, and that was so wonderful because Richard basically gave me the opportunity that I would not probably have not gotten at Disney, or if I had gotten it, it would have taken me many more years to get it. He actually gave me the opportunity to be an animator and let me animate, so that was great. And that was where I ended up meeting Eric Goldberg, who is just one of these savants. He's he's one of those people that just it just not was never a problem for him. He could draw and animate, and just some people are like that. There were a few that I put in that category that just seemed like they had this amazing talent, that it was just they were just dubbed, genius animators or whatever. Um, Dan Haskett, he was another one who just anything that he drew, it just amazing, amazing. Bob McKnight, another one. God rest his soul. Great, tremendous talent. I've just been very blessed to be around some of the finest talents in the business, and so. But back then, you see, everything we did because we did it on paper. There was just a different way of looking at how you do what you do. Like here, I'm talking about flipping through the drawings, and what I'm really saying is that we would have to, we'd take the drawings off the pegs and we'd flip the drawings over and over, and that was really so that we could familiarize ourselves with what it is, the timing of what we like the timing to be. And you're flipping it, and you're kind of almost flipping it with the sense of what the timing's going to be. Well, this part's going to be fast, that part's going to be sort of whatever. And today, because of this wonderful tool that we have here, the ability to play back stuff, that really makes our lives a lot easier. So it's easy to you can easily make a decision about what you want the drawings to be. Like here, for instance, if I want to put a drawing in between here to go from that drawing to that drawing, I can do kind of a rough, just a very rough indication. So, like, let's say he's bring the brushing around to here, right? And his hand is going to be, say, right in here, maybe. Or actually, I think his hand would be kind of straight out, actually. Probably be more like, so his body would be in here somewhere. And you just kind of roughly do it. And then, the hand might be here, here. He's turning his head. So maybe when he's following you do like maybe just a rough kind of indication. The hand's going to be there, but and you just do something sketchy. You see what I mean? Just a little something in there just to kind of bridge that gap so you kind of get a sense of, okay, I added a drawing in there and it gives that little bit of a flow, you see. So you come back and you touch this up a little bit. But back in the day, we were trying to we flipped the drawings to just get a sense we get the flow of what's happening. Now back then, we had this was the advent of the video animation recorder. So that was the technical advancement that we had back then, which it was really a big deal because that advancement was quite significant because up until that time, or just prior to that, to see a pencil test, it had to be shot on film. Like at Disney, and I experienced this. They had their camera department, and Disney was really at that time they were the only company. Like if that would have a dedicated uh, dedicated camera department, where that's all they did. And so, like with the pencil drawings, when you would do your pencil animation, you could send it to the camera department, and they would shoot a pencil test for you, and they would send it back to you. It was film, it's 35 millimeter film, and it would be a loop. So they would take the 35 millimeter film, and you'd have a strip of film, but instead of them giving you just the strip, they would edit it in a loop. And everybody had a moviola. Now, some of you probably go, what's a moviola? Well, a moviola was what the editors had in the camera department. That's how they would look at film, and they would look it up, and put it through the moviola, and it would play. Well, if it's in a loop, you see, it could just play over and over and over, right? And so we had to learn how to use moviola. So you had to learn how to put you had to load up like loading up a projector, you see, and then you could play your pencil test, right? Well, anyways, that's where I come from. Okay, that's how far back I go. Moviolas, the young folks today, you don't know what any of that is, but anyways, so the technology at that point then was as I mentioned, the video animation camera was the new thing. And because, see, back when we had the shot on film, the fastest you could get it back might be an hour or two, which most people thought, wow, yeah, that's great, Because, back when we were coming up as animators, most of us as kids, you shoot your stuff maybe on Super 8. You had to wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks before you could even see anything. So you draw it and you shoot it, and then 2 weeks later you find out, did it work? So which is one of the reasons why we learn how to time things on exposure sheets. But here now they had this video system, you see, so it was instant. You shoot it and whoa, And I remember, oh man, when I even at Bakshi, I mean, they had one. I remember they had a pencil test thing, and I remember I love that thing, and I remember Ralph Bakshi like literally turned the lights off in the studio, it's like to get me out of there because I'm just like, oh, I'm animating because the whole idea that you could see something that you'd drawn instantly was such a cool thing. And see, like today, you folks, you got these, you got this, you got the rough animator, or, Adobe Animate, or Toon Boom or whatever, and you can see what you've done instantly. Well, see, we didn't have that, so so to get this video thing, animation thing, and be able to see an instant pencil test, oh man, that was, it was like manna from heaven, baby. So. And all of that helped us. I mean, the whole process of everything. And then, we also at Disney, we had the old animators who a lot of them were still there. Some of them had retired. A couple of them had passed away. But we had those guys there. Milt Call walking around the hall with Ward Kimball and, Mark Davis. And I was Mark Davis, oh my God. Eric Larson taught us, and then you had Frank and Ollie. They're writing their animation book. I was there for that. So, I consider myself very blessed to have come up at a time where this was happening, and we get to see these people developing, and you're developing, and that's where I come from, and it's just a blessing. So. Anyways, I know I spend more time now talking about this, but I think it's all kind of pertinent. As you can see, I haven't done much, so and I'm going to need to stop here because we're already up over 22 minutes. But anyways, I just kind of wanted you to kind of get a sense of where I come from, what my background is, and what I've had to learn, what I have been learning. And it's just a great honor to work in this business, but the process is going to be the same, even though you've got technology that makes it easier for us to do our jobs. It doesn't really change much about how we go about it. I still look at my tests and I still make determinations about the timing. Like on this, I could decide if the first part of the action could be a little faster and the middle part could slow down or whatever. But seeing it in a speed like this can kind of help me to think about what that would be. And so that's what I mean when we start out. We shoot. This is why we don't necessarily do the timing exact on the first pass because we can make changes. Back in the day, the animators, especially when they didn't have the opportunity to do pencil tests, would time out their animation on the exposure sheet, which you all probably don't use anymore. But exposure sheets were really helpful because you could figure out like how much what you want to have happen in a second or 2 seconds, and you could imagine. And we got to a place where we could sort of sense what a second was on the screen. All of that's really important too. So, anyways, I didn't get that far today in terms of drawing, but we'll pick it up on Monday. So. Hey, take advantage of every opportunity to, if you manage to meet animators or people that have had experience, pick their brain. It's lots that you can learn. I would say most of the people who work in this business are pretty open-hearted. Would probably talk to you about what you do, what they've done, and all of that can be very helpful. I know that helped me. I wouldn't be where I am today as an animator had I not had help from so many, many different people. And as I could say, it's hard. It would be difficult to name all of the people. There have been so many, and I really appreciate every single one of them. And I'm still, even to this day, still learning. So, all right, folks, you have a beautiful weekend. I will see you guys on Monday. Remember to thank God once again for your talents and gifts. None of us would be able to do any of this without God's help. Well, none of us would be breathing without God's help. So let's be thankful to Him. Okay? All right. And then once again, of course, don't forget, Jesus is Lord.